I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, the day after, worldwide reaction, an ongoing investigation, and a special honor from President Trump after conservative activist Charlie Kirk is shot and killed. We're at the White House. What's next as the nation deals with yet another act of political violence? We look at what it could mean for the country and its soul. How the Vatican is responding to the tragic shooting, plus a somber anniversary.
United States Navy.
A nation mourns and remembers the terror attacks of September 11th, 2001. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight. Investigators have released photos of a person of interest in the shooting death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Law enforcement released these photos today and are asking for the public's help in identifying who he is and his whereabouts. Kirk was fatally shot yesterday while speaking on campus at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. He was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. Earlier today, the FBI announced it had possibly found a critical piece of evidence.
We have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled.
As of right now, the motive of the shooter remains unclear. We turn now to someone who attended the event. Chrissy Cordell is a student at Utah Valley University and a member of the school's Newman Center. Chrissy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin with what is the mood on campus today?
Yeah, so campus is closed until further notice, until Monday actually. And it's just a somber mood in this whole environment. Everyone I know is very sad about the recent events. Everyone's shocked. They can't believe what they just witnessed, what they saw on social media, what the university is saying about this event. Everyone, I would say, is just traumatized.
If you can, of course, it was extremely tragic. What did you see yesterday?
So I attended the event. I was there in the crowd. I was there about 20 minutes early. My friends and I, we were all excited. The environment was lively. Everyone was happy to see Charlie Kirk talk. There didn't seem like there would be any sort of conflict involved in this day. There was many supporters in the crowd. We all were there to celebrate and support him. There was a small minority of those that were against him, but most of us here were here to support his mission and what he had to say. And then I would say 20 minutes into the event, as he was speaking about gun violence, we heard a gunshot. We all immediately fled in every direction we could to reach the exits. I was with my friend and I completely lost her in the crowd. No one knew where they were going. There was guys in front of me that were falling and getting trampled on, and I had no way to help. I just had to keep running. Everyone around me was panicked. After I had successfully left the building, those around me were screaming, crying. People were on the phone calling their parents and loved ones, and I just kept running for about 5 minutes until I felt like I was safe enough to keep walking and not need to run from the event. Everything was uncertain. We didn't know what was happening. Messages were flooding in from the school about the event, as well from people I knew, asking about my safety. I was hearing rumors left and right about him being shot, and it was just full of confusion and chaos that day.
No one should have to endure what you did. We're happy you're safe, and we thank you so much for sharing your experience. Chrissy Cordell, student at Utah Valley University, who saw yesterday's shooting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Church leaders say they are praying for Charlie Kirk and his family. The 31-year-old was a devout Christian who fought against abortion and the transgender movement. Bishop Oscar Solis of the Diocese of Salt Lake City, where the assassination took place, said in a statement, quote, "It seems that our society has lost the sense of the sanctity of life, and I pray that our government will undertake appropriate measures to stop these horrible crimes." Bishop Michael Burbidge of the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, praised Kirk's commitment to, quote, "civil and rational discourse," adding that we are living through a perilous moment. He also called for people to live together as brothers and sisters. The Vatican has since weighed in on the murder of Charlie Kirk, saying it remains committed to pushing back against all violence.
At the Vatican stand, we are against all type of violence, and we think that we have to be very, very tolerant and very respectful to everybody, even though we don't share the same view, the same declaration, the same thoughts. But if we are not tolerant and respectful and we are violent, this will produce really a big problem inside the international community and the national community.
Bishop Robert Barron of the Diocese of Winona, Rochester, says on X that Kirk was indeed a great debater and also one of the best advocates in our country for civil discourse, but he was first and last a passionate Christian. Bishop Barron added that his meetings with Kirk often focused on theology and Christ. In an interview shortly before he was killed, Kirk said the answer to toxic feminism is the Blessed Virgin Mary, and he noted how many young men are flocking to the Catholic Church. President Donald Trump will posthumously award Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, America's highest civilian honor. At the Pentagon today, where the president was remembering the lives lost on 9/11, he began his remarks by saying Kirk was a giant of his generation and a champion of liberty. White House correspondent Owen Jensen continues our team coverage.
Well, good evening. President Trump also said today Charlie Kirk was an inspiration to millions of people, that he's praying for his loved ones, his wife and children, calling them fantastic people.
On what is already a very emotional day for America.
And today, as one nation, we renew our sacred vow that we will never forget September 11th, 2001.
The immense shock of the Charlie Kirk assassination weighing heavily on President Donald Trump.
We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on.
Kirk was a close ally, confidant, and friend.
I think he was a unique man.
Meanwhile, more tributes. Vice President J.D. Vance described in detail his friendship with Kirk in a long post on social media, writing in part, "Charlie genuinely believed in and loved Jesus Christ. He had a profound faith. We used to argue about Catholicism and Protestantism and who was right about minor doctrinal questions. Because he loved God, he wanted to understand him." Vance went on to write, "Someone else pointed out that Charlie died doing what he loved, discussing ideas. He would go into these hostile crowds and answer their questions. If it was a friendly crowd and a progressive asked a question to jeers from the audience, he'd encourage his fans to calm down and let everyone speak." The murder also weighs heavily on Secretary Pete Hegseth. He praised Kirk's courage.
"The life, example, and even death of Christ follower and American patriot Charlie Kirk give me hope."
Hegseth says, like those on 9/11, Kirk will never be forgotten.
"Charlie, we love you. We know that you have heard the Lord's words. Well done, good and faithful servant."
Regarding the Presidential Medal of Freedom, President Trump added, a date for the ceremony will be announced, and he guarantees a very big crowd. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Stunned, grief-stricken, angry, and concerned for their own safety, U.S. lawmakers are shaken, trying to come to grips with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Both sides agree that the political atmosphere in the country is troubling and headed in the wrong direction. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us with the latest. Eric.
Well, good evening, Veronica. Both Republicans and Democrats agree that the political animosity has reached a boiling point here in the halls of Congress, and leaders need to tone it down. They all want to see the end of the hateful rhetoric and political violence, but when I ask lawmakers about that, each side still blames each other.
We have seen this spike in political violence. We saw it in Minnesota. We saw it in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's got to stop. It's leading the country down a very dangerous path.
Several Democrats are already pushing for more gun control.
That if we want to stop the scourge of violence in this country, we must do our jobs and pass common sense gun safety reforms.
I don't know what legislation can do. Can legislation change the heart of a man? Never heard of that. So I think it's up for all of us to look inside ourselves.
Even a moment of silence on the House floor last night for Kirk turned into a shouting match when Congresswoman Lauren Boebert asked that a spoken prayer be made. But the disruption didn't die down.
Wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Shh.
Democrats were screaming and shouting, no, 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 over and over again. That is precisely the problem with the Democrat Party right now. Republicans, we are the party of normal, and they are the party of the wicked.
Why don't you start with the President of the United States, right? And every ugly meme he has posted and every ugly word. I just don't want to hear this from the Republicans.
Now the focus is turning to lawmakers' own safety. Some say that they plan to cut down on public appearances, especially outside venues.
When you talk about security, you need to think about outdoor events probably are going to be a lot fewer in numbers for members of Congress, at least in the short term.
While others have even asked the Sergeant-at-Arms and Speaker Mike Johnson for more security.
We're in a deliberate review process right now to determine what measures are appropriate, how much we could allocate for that. We've got to protect people who run for public office, or no one will.
Bottom line, lawmakers agree that the reset button needs to be pressed. Now, Kirk's killing comes as Congress, increasingly divided over President Donald Trump and his agenda, is barreling toward a perspective of yet another government shutdown with little bipartisanship in sight. Just this morning, Democratic leaders said that they will not support funding the government past the end of the month unless Republicans restore health care cuts made in the GOP-backed Big Beautiful Bill. I'll continue to keep very close watch on it and keep you updated. Veronica?
Joining us now to talk more about Charlie Kirk and his political influence is Stephen Kent, a conservative commentator. Stephen, you worked alongside Turning Point USA. Why was Charlie such a force in conservative media?
Well, he made being a conservative and a college Republican fun. I started getting involved in campus activism with a group called Generation Opportunity in 2015, 16, and 17. And Turning Point USA was a fledgling organization at that time competing for people who are interested in conservative ideas on campus. And boy, did they win almost every time. Not only was it hard to compete with TPUSA and Charlie Kirk's energy, but the college Republicans couldn't either. It was actually more of a symbol that you were a Republican and that you were going to be voting that way as you grew up and got out of college, that you went to Turning Point USA gatherings. You didn't go to the actual college Republican meetings. It's fascinating, and it just has to do with being bold, assertive in your ideas, and unapologetic, which I think Republicans have been for a very long time.
So you really summed up his impact. Do you see anyone else who might be able to reach out to the college students and the younger generation in the way that he did?
Well, certainly. I mean, there are a ton of people in this space who are largely not riding the coattails of Charlie Kirk, but trying to learn from how successful he was. I mean, the guys, the Daily Wire, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, there's a young guy named Brad Palumbo, Daniel DiMartino at Young Americans for Freedom. These are young conservative leaders who are going out there every single day and engaging in conversation with young people who want to know more about their options when it comes to politics, that they don't just have to go to school and accept progressivism without any sort of other ideas offered to them. But right now, what we're going to face is an environment where it is truly not safe to do this. I don't know how that's possible. You know, Ben Shapiro talks all the time about how he likes to reject, wearing a bulletproof vest when he goes to campuses, because this is America. Why would you ever need that? But we are now at a turning point, if you will, where we are going to lose something the actual exchange of ideas on college campuses and in public spaces without glass between us. That's a very dark prospect.
Very dark and a very complicated issue moving forward. Of course, Charlie was interested in so many topics. Can you remind us again of his work defending the unborn and speaking out against the transgender movement on campuses?
Well, he was unflinching, and part of the way that I think Charlie Kirk communicates is to be clear in what his position is and to not be apologetic about truth. You know, I think that there's a temptation often to sort of lead with empathy and try to understand the other side, and there's a place and a value in that, but it often obscures what the cold, hard facts of biology and life are. There's a wonderful video of Charlie discussing whether or not a child in the womb is a fetus or a baby, and leading that young girl at college through her logic. And you can tell she's never really thought critically about this before. There are so many instances like that. And for all of us, our challenge is going to be, I think, as C.S. Lewis said in Mere Christianity, chapter 7 on forgiveness, that it is very easy to be angry and then not to feel hate, but it is so much harder to both be angry about something, to feel hate towards people and their evil ideas, and still to love them and to forgive. And that is what we are all now going to be faced with, to wish wicked people well and try to guide them back to truth and to eternity. That's our big challenge. Anger without resentment, as Father Mike Schmitz said earlier this morning.
Wise words. Stephen Kent, conservative commentator, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, including a disturbing trend, the growing uptick of political violence, and what can be done to stop it. World leaders are reacting to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They're sending condolences and recalling his international reach.
Are you a Christian by any chance?
Very, very much so.
Like, why is that exactly?
Jesus saved my life. I'm a sinner, gave my life to Christ, most important decision I ever made.
A well-known figure in the conservative movement, Kirk supported Christian ethics. His youth organization, Turning Point USA, helped shape the political landscape by mobilizing young conservative voters and was even gaining traction around the world. Following Kirk's assassination, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to Fox, sharing that he invited Kirk to Israel just a few weeks ago.
I spoke to him and I said, please come to Israel. I invited him to Israel. And sadly, that visit will not take place. But he was a defender of our common Judeo-Christian civilization. He was unbelievably excited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus here.
From Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni shared her condolences with his family, calling it a deep wound for democracy and for those who believe in freedom. Javier Milei, president of Argentina, echoed the sentiment, saying Kirk was a formidable disseminator of the ideas of freedom. The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, quote, "It is heartbreaking that a young family has been robbed of a father and husband." And Irish Deputy Premier Simon Harris shared this today regarding Kirk.
Well, I think the killing of Charlie Kirk is appalling. It's horrifying. It's deeply disturbing.
Mexican Catholic actor Eduardo Verastegui posted asking for prayers to God and our Most Holy Mother to receive him in their glory. And in the European Parliament, conservatives requested a moment of silence for Kirk, which was rejected by the Parliament's president.
We must strongly condemn political violence and rhetoric that incites violence. Please stand with me in reflection and prayer in his honor, and I yield the rest of my time for a moment of silence.
Herr Kollege Weimers, wir haben abgesprochen und Sie wissen.
In response, one Polish member of parliament, Dominik Tarczynski, said he will organize an exhibition in the European Parliament to commemorate Kirk, so his legacy will bear fruit. The murder of Charlie Kirk is the latest in a string of acts of political violence in recent years.
Take a look at what happened.
Prior to that attempt, the president was grazed by a bullet during a 2024 campaign event in Pennsylvania.
Yep. You want to go with Keep walking!
Today, opening statements began in the trial of Ryan Ruth. He is the man accused of plotting to kill President Trump at his West Palm Beach golf club last year. Just 3 months ago, a masked gunman killed Democratic Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman along with her husband and dog.
If he was trying to terrorize our family, our friends, the Jewish community who joined us for a Passover Seder in that room last night.
And in April, a man was charged in an anti-Semitic arson attack on the residence of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro while he and his family were asleep inside. Joining us now is Ken Craycraft, a moral theology professor at Mount St. Mary's Seminary and School of Theology. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Veronica. It's nice to be with you.
So we just did that recap. We are seeing more and more acts of political violence. Is this the new normal, and how did we get here?
Well, you know what, Veronica, I hate to be the voice of pessimism, but I do think that this is the new normal. And the way that I hear, I think, is rooted in the very way that we structure our political lives together. I think we have to have the courage to admit that the political violence and the way that each side gets further entrenched in their own political rhetoric and political ideology every time we see this is an indication that we aren't interested in engaging in what might be a real solution to political violence. We Americans believe that we are possessed of certain unalienable rights, as the Declaration of Independence puts it. Another way of thinking about that, Veronica, is we are endowed with certain claims against one another. In other words, the language of individual political rights, which is the staple of the liberalism from the left and the right in the U.S., is a language that teaches us that we are not a community, but rather a collection of individuals in pursuit of our own individual goods. When those individual goods are impeded by someone else, and we don't have the political rhetoric to be able to respond to it, and we find ourselves unable to negotiate the extent of the rights that we want to uphold, then we see, first of all, violent rhetoric, and then we see the rhetoric acted out. And when I use the term liberalism here, Veronica, I don't mean what we usually mean at the left of the political spectrum, usually associated with Democrats. By liberalism, I mean a commitment to possessive individualism in which we think that we're endowed with certain claims against one another. And as long as that's the case, then the best we can do is sort of come up with a social compact that will agree to forego some of our rights in exchange for the other person foregoing some of their rights. But we don't have in America any kind of overarching moral principle which adjudicates among those rights. And so when we have a conflict of rights, both sides thinking that we have an absolute claim to our rights, then we find ourselves unable to negotiate around that, and that leads to political violence. So as I said at the outset, I think that we need to have the courage to ask whether or not the political rhetoric in the U.S. from both sides is a symptom of the same basic problem of the way that we think about politics in general in the U.S. And that's very different from the way that Catholic moral theology thinks about the human person, about our lives together, and about other kinds of social issues.
Ken Craycraft, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Veronica.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, Triumph of the Heart. A new film tells a story of hope and heroism. Plus, it's a big weekend for the church in America. What makes this Sunday especially historic? A new film featuring the heroic life of St. Maximilian Kolbe is hitting theaters tomorrow, and you won't want to miss it.
I can take his place.
Triumph of the Heart takes viewers into the life of the Polish priest who offered his own life in exchange for a fellow prisoner in the Auschwitz concentration camp. A true story of hope and heroism. You can find information on where to watch the film at triumphoftheheart.com. A big weekend for the church in the United States. Sunday marks the 50th anniversary of the canonization of the first American saint. At least 150,000 people packed St. Peter's Square on September 14, 1975, for the canonization of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Among the crowd were 16,000 Americans, including dozens of religious sisters from the Daughters of Charity, the order co-founded by Mother Seton. This week, the Seton Shrine in Emmitsburg, Maryland, outside the nation's capital, will be holding several events in honor of the anniversary. For more, we turn to Rob Judge, Executive Director of the Seton Shrine in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Rob, great to have you back.
Veronica, it's great to be with you.
So remind us of that historic day in 1975. How big was it both in Rome and here in the United States?
It was just a tremendous celebration. You know, after 200 years of the founding of our country, finally an American, one of our own, had been raised to the altars and declared a saint. There were over 100,000 people in Rome. There were over 25,000 people here in Emmitsburg celebrating that day. And of course, people all around the country. It was just an amazing day for all of us who are Catholics in the United States.
Tell us what is coming up at the Seton Shrine starting Friday. We understand there's masses and even an exhibition on the daily life in the U.S. in 1975.
Yes, so it's really a whole weekend long of celebration that will start on Friday the 12th. We're going to have an outdoor concert where we'll have classical musicians playing candlelight music on the historic grounds. The houses will be open. There'll be food trucks. It'll just be a beautiful evening under the stars. As we go into Saturday, it'll be open all day, the houses. We'll have a special mass with Father Tomasz Mahavrik, who's the General Superior of the Vincentian Order. That'll be at 11 o'clock on Saturday. And then, of course, our big day is Sunday. That's the actual anniversary. Things will kick off with Archbishop William Laurie, who will be celebrating an 11:30 liturgy that will be broadcast on EWTN that evening. And then in the afternoon, it'll be a really big family festival outside. We'll have food and entertainment, concerts. We're going to have different guilds representing other American saints. It's just going to be a great day of family fun and faith.
A great time for the community to come together, but so far, what has been the response been, and maybe how many people are you expecting this weekend?
The response has just been amazing. We've really been celebrating all year long here at the Seton Shrine, so we've had thousands of people coming, parishes, individuals, and families making pilgrimage during this anniversary year. And this weekend, we don't really know how many we'll have, but you know, there'll be hundreds and potentially 1,000 to 1,500 people.
Rob Judge, Executive Director of the Seton Shrine, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Veronica, for having us. God bless you.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. We leave you tonight with images from the September 11th commemorations. Good night and God bless.